OCG tier list, ladies and gentlemen. This is actually an interesting take that I kind of want to discuss because I don't agree with some of these points here. I'm betting 30% of you guys have not smashed the crap out of that subscribe button. Smash it so we can get further into 100,000. This is going to be pre-Power of the Elements here, ladies and gentlemen. This is a tier list for April here. Now, we're going to start up here in the S tier here, where we have Albaz, Flonderies, and Drytron, actually. Now, the interesting thing about this is Albaz has been genuinely losing a lot of the Brave engine as every ban list unfolds in the OCG, but this engine still maintains a very high presence, which is very interesting to me. Like, this deck grinds out relatively well, and it's just, based on everything else present in the format here, it's really powerful. Now, Flunder in the OCG is an absolute unit. Alright, like, this deck scares me, ladies and gentlemen, for, like, everything that they've got, like, present in their format. Like, I can see why the OCG would put this in, like, S tier, but I think it's really A tier, in my opinion, which is, I guess, very interesting as well, because, like, MPen, OCG players just have a hard time playing around it. And then, of course, you've seen Drytron stealing out here with all the Avas and all the Ben 10s in the world. And, I mean, honestly, you never really see the deck, like, topping all that much. But the deck's power ceiling is so high that it's nuts. All right, like, leaving that deck unchecked in the current presence of their format is insanity, actually. So, okay. So if we're looking at S tier for what the decks do in terms of power, I will give that to them. Alright, but my problem still here lies, like, in terms of, like, a comparison from our metagame to, like, the OCG. I don't know if I'd agree with that. Now, in A tier down here, we have Tenyi Sword Soul. So basically, or no, this would be the Tenyi Synchro Good Stuff deck. Now remember, they have O-Lion. This deck is on a whole nother level over there. I'd almost put this deck above, you know, some of the stuff in S tier, but, you know, they've been losing the Brave engine, so they don't have, like, the full Synchro package that we really do. So that I guess, kind of is interesting in terms of things. So they put that at A tier. And then we have Lyricalisk Tri-Brigade. You know, this deck also isn't performing, but in terms of what the deck has, it's like unchecked at the moment. So, I don't know. Some of the, like, the A tier feels like not correct in terms of things. Now let's go down here into B tier, because this is where things get very interesting to me as a player looking from the outside in here. Now, we have Adignister in B tier here. Every single 1/1 YCS event, or anything 1/1 I ever see, there's always one Adignister player that creeps on in there, ladies and gentlemen. And I understand that, like, the deck has massive consistency things, but is it really, like, what we would deem tier 2 in the OCG? And in terms of, like, power ceiling, I kind of disagree with this. I almost want to say that in presence of the OCG, this should almost be 1.5. Just because they really do make this deck out to be a crazy powerhouse. And it really goes to show, ladies and gentlemen, that their dedication to this deck is crazy. And we also have Thurions in here, aka we're going to load up some negates and do our thing. Though this deck did not perform on a higher level out of the YCS 1/1 format here, I do still think that, you know, in a lot of these events and things that I've seen Thurion set up, this deck also has a very powerful ceiling. Alright, do not underestimate engines of searchability that do a lot. Alright, trust me on that. I also see over here that we have that Emancipator in B tier. I mean, they still have Block Dragon, ladies and gentlemen, but these are all, like, very good rogue decks, because we also have Marincess over here. I see a lot of Marincess in the OCG. Holy crap. When I look at a lot of these reports and things, there's almost always a Marincess list showing up in top 4s. And, you know, when you look at these lists here, Marincess is very good, alright? But once again, it's in the same category as Adignister. You know, you do your one-card shenanigans to set up these big monsters, and then hope that your opponent doesn't have an out for them. And that's basically kind of what you get at the end of the day. with just Marincess. So honestly, I can agree with everything in here being a Rogue Buster, including, you know, Eldritch down here, because they still do have triple skill drain present at the end of the day here in terms of things. So yeah, I do wholeheartedly agree that like B tier here is like pretty Rogue Buster-ish. Alright, now down here is the first thing I don't agree with. They have Rune at C tier, which is actually just massively no. The Rune decks I've seen over there, Reasoning, Monster Gate strategies that mill their entire deck and just start setting up these draw 3 engines is nuts to me, ladies and gentlemen. The fact that they can do these massive turnover plays with this, honestly, right now I would think that this deck would be one of the tier 1 scary decks in the format right now because of what this deck does. It really, really is a scary behemoth once it gets going. Maybe they're putting it lower down here because like maybe the turnover is a little bit less, if that makes sense, but it's been present in a lot of stuff. But I do think a lot of players have kind of found a little bit more ways to kind of side deck it, but I don't know, I kind of, in terms of like power ceiling, I disagree with this very highly. Should be much higher up here. Sword Soul down here at C tier is also interesting, though it has kind of fallen off. You know, this deck has like no restrictions in the OCG whatsoever. It's just really sad because at the end of the day, it keeps getting worse and worse. Alright, like no changes. It's just massive powers of power creep here. Now, Sky Striker, I also don't know if I'd put down here. Sky Striker should probably be in the Rogue tier up here, because Sky Striker still performs relatively well. I see pretty much about as much Sky Striker as I see Marincess in terms of things, in, you know, terms of representation, but for some reason, Sky Striker got the boot down here versus, you know, Marincess. So, two big things I strongly disagree with here, so I'd move this up for sure. It definitely is something that can counteract a lot of things here. And then, of course, we have Virtual World here. VW being VW, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, they're still playing the Brave package, even though they're past, like, the limitations and things that they've really got over there. It really sucks because, you know, when your Brave package is pretty much on its last legs of, you know, one-ups, you're definitely trying things out here to have this be better off. D tier down here, we have the Pendulum Graph stuff. Now remember, they do have this little Voliance engine that lets you special summon Pendulum Stork, which I did start to see coming up in some like rogue levels here, which is actually a really cool idea. You know, being able to use the Voliance field spell to special summon Pendulum Stork to go search for Squokabat Joker is absolutely awesome. Thorion's over here in D tier as well. In combination with the Zark Trap card, this deck actually functions and does very, very well post Dimension Force. Like, honestly, I think this deck is a lot of frickin' fun. We also have Tri-Brigade down here. I made a mention earlier about the Lyricalist deck, but, you know, Tri-Brigade pushing all the way down here. No hits really happened to this deck that really made it down here. And then Labyrinth down here in, like, the super bottom rogue tier. I mean, these are decks that you will see show up at events, but they don't really crazily do anything. Alright, though Labyrinth has had a couple of showings. It hasn't been anything too crazy. Altergeist down here in E tier. Yikes. I mean, the deck doesn't really do anything. Thunder Dragon's also down here in Blah tier. And then Phantom Knights got yeeted all the way down here after their limitations on some of the stuff. So overall, thoughts on this list? Well, there are some things I don't agree with. Rune should be much higher up on the list. I don't know why they're putting Rune so far down. I also want to know why, you know, Sky Striker isn't more into the rogue tier. But I can understand, you know, some of the power ceilings and things that are present in these decks and the way that they kind of curve out some of the matchups in the OCG. I perfectly understand why some of these things are placed the way they are. But you should get an idea here with this that there are a lot of cool things present in the OCG. You know, we literally have the next set up here on the horizon, but it is very interesting to kind of see where, you know, the meta can stand and really what is kind of unfolding in the OCG. So I hope this gives you a little bit of a taste, at least in my valuement, for where the OCG values things versus, you know, on this tier list. So guys, please leave a comment down below. Tell me what you guys think. Make sure you guys smash the crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out on more awesome content. And I will, in fact, see your beautiful faces back here later on the day with some more cool, awesome content. You guys stay safe out there, all right? Peace out, guys. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.